My name is Emily, and I'm from a small town in Ohio, where the summers smell of fresh cut grass and the winters blanket everything in snow. I'm 28 now, sharing this story with you because I want you to know that even when life feels like a cage, there's a way to find freedom. This is the story of how I married without love, how it broke me, and how I found myself again. So grab a coffee, get comfortable, and let me take you back to where it all started. I grew up in a close-knit family, the kind where Sunday dinners were mandatory and everyone knew your business. My dad was a mechanic, my mom a nurse, and I was the eldest of 2 kids, with a younger brother who was always getting into trouble. Being the oldest meant I was the responsible one, the one who had to set an example. My parents didn't say it outright, but I felt it, their hopes, their dreams for me to be the perfect daughter. I was a dreamer, always lost in books. I'd spend hours at the local library, reading everything from Jane Austen to Stephen King. I wanted to be a writer, to tell stories that made people feel something. In high school, I was the girl with big plans. College, a career, maybe even moving to New York one day. But life has a way of changing your plans. When I was 22, my dad got sick. It started with headaches, then dizziness, and soon he couldn't work. The doctors said it was a brain tumor, treatable but expensive. My mom's nursing job wasn't enough to cover the bills, and my brother was still in high school. I was in my last year of college, studying English, so close to graduating. But the hospital bills kept coming, and I watched my parents' savings disappear. One night, my mom sat me down at the kitchen table. Her hands were shaking and her eyes were tired. "Emily," she said, "there's someone who wants to meet you." His name was Mark, a 30-year-old accountant from a good family in town. He'd seen me at church, asked about me, and now he was interested. "He's stable, honey," my mom said, her voice soft but urgent. "He can help us. He can help your dad." My heart sank. I knew what she was asking. I wanted to say no, to run, but I saw the fear in her eyes, the weight of my dad's illness. So I nodded. "Okay, Mom," I whispered, my throat tight. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Mark came over for dinner, polite and reserved, with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. He was nice enough, tall, clean-cut, with a steady job, but there was no spark. Our conversations were awkward, like we were both reading from a script. "Do you like to read?" I asked once, hoping for a connection. "Not much," he said, shrugging. "I'm more into numbers." I told myself it didn't matter. Love could grow, right? That's what everyone said. The wedding was simple, held at our church with white flowers and a small reception in the community hall. I wore a white dress my mom helped me pick out, and I smiled for the pictures, but inside I felt numb. Mark was kind, shaking hands, thanking guests, but when he looked at me, it was like he was looking through me. We said our vows, and I became his wife, but it felt like I was signing away my life. That first night in his apartment was the loneliest I'd ever felt. It was a nice place, clean and modern, but it wasn't home. Mark was gentle, asking if I needed anything, but there was a distance between us. We slept in the same bed, but it felt like a stranger was next to me. I stared at the ceiling, wondering if this was my life now, empty, dutiful, loveless. I tried to make it work. I cooked dinner every night, learned his favorite meals, kept the apartment spotless. Mark was never unkind. He brought me flowers sometimes, asked about my day, but it wasn't enough. I missed my books, my dreams, the girl who wanted to write stories. I'd lie awake at night, my heart aching for something more. One day I found an old journal in a box of my things, filled with stories I'd written in college. I started writing again, late at night, pouring my heart onto the pages. It was my only escape, the only place I could be honest. One evening, Mark found the journal. He sat on the couch, flipping through it, his face unreadable. "Emily," he said, "are you okay? These are sad." I froze, my heart racing. I wanted to lie, to say I was fine, but the tears came first. "I don't know how to do this," I admitted. "I don't know if I love you." He looked at me, and for the first time I saw hurt in his eyes. "I don't know if I love you either," he said quietly. "But I want to try." That night we talked for hours, really talked. He told me about his own pressures, his parents' expectations, his fear of letting them down. We were both trapped, bound by duty, not love. "What do we do?" I asked, my voice breaking. He took my hand. "We figure it out," he said, "together." The months after that talk were better, but not perfect. Mark and I weren't in love, but we were trying to be friends. We made a promise to be honest, to stop pretending everything was okay. It was a relief to admit we were struggling, but it didn't fill the emptiness inside me. I started working part-time at a local bookstore, surrounded by the books I loved. It wasn't writing, but it was something. The customers, the smell of paper, the quiet moments shelving books. It gave me a purpose. I'd come home and tell Mark about my day, and he'd listen, asking questions, trying to connect. It wasn't love, but it was a start. Then things got hard again. Mark's firm lost a major client, and he was working late, coming home stressed and distant. I tried to be there for him, making coffee, listening when he needed to vent. But he'd just say, "It's fine. Emily, I'll handle it." I felt so alone even when he was right there. One night, he came home at midnight, his face pale. "We might lose the house," he said, his voice flat. I sat beside him, my heart pounding. "What happened?" I asked. He explained that the firm was downsizing, and his job was at risk. I wanted to help, but I didn't know how. "We'll get through this," I said, echoing his words from months ago, but it felt like a lie. The financial strain changed everything. Mark's parents, who had always been kind, started dropping hints about me getting a real job. His sister Lisa, who I'd thought liked me, made comments about how I wasn't pulling my weight. I felt like a failure, not just as a wife, but as a person. I took on more hours at the bookstore, but the pay was low, and it barely helped. Then one day I saw him, Jake, my college boyfriend, the one I'd loved with all my heart. I was at the mall, picking up a gift for my mom, when I spotted him at a coffee shop, laughing with a friend. My breath caught. Jake and I had been inseparable in college, sharing dreams, late-night talks, and a love for stories. I'd never stopped loving him, but we broke up when he moved to Chicago for a job. Seeing him again brought back every feeling I'd buried. I didn't talk to him. I just watched, my heart aching, then turned and left. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what could have been if I'd followed my heart instead of my duty. I felt guilty, like I was betraying Mark just by thinking about Jake. But I couldn't stop. Every time Mark was distant, every time we fought about money, I'd think of Jake's smile, his warmth, the way he made me feel alive. I started pulling away from Mark, not on purpose, but because being near him reminded me of what I didn't have. One evening he noticed. We were eating dinner, the silence heavy between us. "Emily," he said, "what's wrong?" "You're not here anymore." I wanted to lie, but the truth came out. "I saw someone from my past," I said, my voice shaking. "Someone I loved." And it made me realize, I don't know if I can do this. His face fell, and I hated myself for hurting him. "Do you want to leave?" he asked, his voice quiet. I didn't know how to answer. Did I want to leave? Or did I just want to feel again? We didn't talk about it again for weeks, but the question lingered. I threw myself into work, into writing, anything to distract me. Then one day, everything changed. My phone rang while I was at the bookstore. It was my mom. Her voice panicked. "Emily, it's your dad. He's in the hospital." I rushed to the hospital, my heart racing. The doctors said it was a stroke, and they weren't sure if he'd recover. I stayed by his side for days, holding his hand, talking to him even when he couldn't respond. Mark was there too, bringing food, checking on my brother, doing everything he could. I saw a side of him I hadn't before, steady, selfless. He didn't push me to talk about us. He was just there. For the first time, I felt something, not love, but gratitude. maybe even respect. My dad pulled through, but it was a long road to recovery. Those weeks changed me. I realized how much I'd taken for granted. My family, my life, even Mark. I'd been so focused on what I didn't have that. I'd stopped seeing what I did, but the cracks in our marriage were still there, and I knew we couldn't ignore them forever. The hospital bills were crushing. Even with Mark's help, we were drowning in debt. I took on extra shifts at the bookstore, but it wasn't enough. Mark was working overtime, and I could see it wearing him down. He was quieter, thinner, his eyes always tired. I wanted to fix things, but I didn't know how. One night, I found him at the kitchen table, staring at a stack of bills. "We're not going to make it," he said, his voice hollow. I sat beside him, my heart heavy. "We'll find a way," I said, but I didn't believe it. That's when he told me about a job offer in Seattle. A good one, with a salary that could save us, but it meant moving across the country for at least a year. "I don't want to go," he said, looking at me. But I don't see another way. I felt like I was losing him. Part of me wanted the space, a chance to figure out what I wanted, but another part was terrified. What if he left and we drifted apart for good? "Do what you need to do," I said, my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. He nodded, and that was it. Mark left for Seattle a month later. The house felt empty without him, like it was holding its breath. His parents were kind, but I could feel their judgment. "You should have tried harder," his mom said once, her voice soft but sharp. I started spending more time at my parents' house, helping with my dad's recovery, trying to stay busy. But the loneliness was overwhelming. That's when I started a blog. I wrote about my feelings, my fears, my regrets, my hopes. I didn't expect anyone to read it, but they did. People left comments, sharing their own stories of struggle and loss. It felt like I wasn't alone anymore. One comment caught my eye from Jake. "Emily, is this you?" He wrote, "Your words are beautiful. They remind me of us." My heart raced. I didn't reply at first, but he kept commenting, and eventually we started messaging. It was innocent, just catching up, but every message felt like a spark. One day he asked to meet. "I'm in town," he said, "just for coffee." I knew it was a mistake, but I went. Seeing him was like stepping back in time. He was older, but his smile, his voice, they were the same. We talked for hours, laughing, remembering. "I never stopped thinking about you," he said, his eyes soft. "I wish I'd fought for us." My heart broke all over again. I wanted to stay, to tell him everything, but I couldn't. I was married. "I have to go," I said, standing up. He didn't stop me, but his eyes followed me as I left. That night I cried until I had no tears left. I felt like I was betraying Mark, betraying myself. I wanted to call Jake, but instead I wrote. I poured everything into my blog, and when I was done, I emailed Mark. I told him how lost I felt, how much I wanted to find a way back to us. I didn't expect a reply, but he wrote back, "Emily, I don't know if we can fix this, but I want to try. I'm coming home." Mark came back 3 months later. He looked worn out, but when he hugged me, it felt real. We didn't talk about the email right away, just fell back into our routine trying to rebuild. It wasn't easy. There were days when the silence returned, when I wondered if we were just delaying the end. But there were also moments that gave me hope. One evening, we went for a walk in the park. It was new for us, almost like a first date. We talked about his time in Seattle, my blog, our fears. "I read your blog," he said, surprising me. "It's amazing, Emily. I didn't know you had so much inside you." I blushed, touched. "I didn't know how to tell you," I said. He took my hand, and it felt right. We started therapy, something I never thought we'd do. The therapist was kind, helping us see our patterns, my resentment, Mark's pressure to provide. We learned to listen, to talk without fear. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. My blog was growing. I started a YouTube channel, sharing my stories and poems. I was nervous, but the response was incredible. People from all over shared their stories, and I felt like I was part of something bigger. One day, a small publisher reached out. They wanted to turn my blog into a book. I was stunned. Mark was the first person I told, and his grin lit up the room. "You're going to be a star," he said, and I believed him. But life threw another curveball. Mark's dad got sick, and we moved in with his parents to help. It was hard, being under their roof, feeling their eyes on me. Lisa was colder than ever, blaming me for Mark's time away. One night, I overheard her talking to him. "She's changed you," she said. "You used to put family first." I waited for Mark to defend me, but he was silent. That hurt more than anything. Later, I confronted him, tears streaming down my face. "Do you agree with her?" I asked. He looked at me, his eyes honest. "No, Emily, you're my family now." That was when I knew. I didn't love Mark the way I'd loved Jake, with that wild passion. But I cared about him, deeply, in a way that was real and steady. It was our love, built from struggle and choice. 2 years later, we were in a better place. Mark's job was stable, and my book was published. Not a bestseller, but mine. My YouTube channel had thousands of subscribers, and I was still working at the bookstore, writing in my spare time. Mark and I weren't perfect, but we were a team. We laughed more, fought less, and when we did fight, we worked through it. We started dreaming together, traveling, maybe starting a family. One day, Jake messaged me. He'd seen my book, my videos, and wanted to congratulate me. "I'm proud of you, Emily," he wrote. I stared at the message, my heart heavy with what could have been. But then I looked at Mark, reading one of my stories, and I knew I'd chosen right. I wrote back to Jake, thanking him, then deleted his contact. It was hard, but it was closure. Mark's dad passed away a few months later. It was tough, but it brought us closer. We grieved together, and his family started to see me differently. Lisa even apologized, her voice soft. "I was wrong about you," she said. It felt good, but I didn't need her approval anymore. As I record this for you, I know life isn't perfect. Marriage is hard, especially without love at the start, but love can grow. Not just from feelings, but from choices, from showing up. Mark and I aren't the couple I dreamed of, but we're real, and that's enough. If you're watching this and feel stuck, in a marriage, a job, a life that doesn't feel like yours, know you're not alone. Your dreams, your heart, they matter. It's okay to struggle, to want more. Take one step, even a small one. Write, talk, reach out. Find what makes you feel alive and hold on. You don't need all the answers, just the courage to keep going. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs it. Subscribe to my channel for more stories and poems from my heart. Leave a comment. I read every one, and I want to hear your story. Let's keep this conversation going, because together we can find light in the darkness.